A business that is selling exclusively into the parkour community is going to inherently have some massive challenges. We have a parkour team, we post on YouTube and Instagram. Total addressable market, cost to acquire a client versus lifetime gross profit equation. How many people could you possibly sell your thing to? How's it going, parkour community? My name is Jimmy Davidson with Motion Mentors. Motion Mentors is a business that is focused on growing the parkour industry as a whole globally. And the other day, this week, we had some news that's sort of in the opposite direction of that. Farang, a well-known and pretty well-loved parkour clothing business out of the UK or wherever they're based, has been closing down. And they just released on their Instagram, this post that will show up on screen here. That, it's been a fun ride, but something's happened internally. I'm not personally sure what, but they've decided to close down. They went on to say that they are personally, not sad about it. They're confident in their decision, and they are proud of their, 10 plus years of being in the parkour clothing industry and growing our sport and contributing to it, which they should definitely be proud of that. In my region, I'm over in California. I see Farang shirts pretty often. So it did come as a surprise to me, I guess, as far as like the timing goes of it. But in general, I'm not surprised at the business closing down. Not because Farang in particular did anything wrong. I actually don't know much about how they ran their business, but just that a business that is selling exclusively into the parkour community is going to inherently have some massive challenges. So on this episode, I want to kind of zoom in on specifically clothing brands or brands that are selling right into the parkour community, selling products into the parkour community. We've done a lot of conversation around coaching and parkour gyms, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But here I want to zoom in on, if you have a parkour clothing business, you have a parkour brand, you are doing something for the parkour community. What are your risks? What do we need to consider? And how can we potentially pivot a little bit to grow ourselves into prosperity, into growing the parkour industry, without deviating away from parkour and without deviating away from like what makes your sport and our, what we're all about so special. Okay, so that's interesting to you. Stick around. My name is Jimmy Davidson. We're going to jump on in. The first thing I want to talk about is the total addressable market, the concept of the TAM, total addressable market. The TAM is, when you zoom out, it's how many people could you possibly sell your thing to? So if you are a clothing company that's specifically for parkour, you really only advertise and market to the parkour industry. Let's say you do that the typical ways, which is just, we have a parkour team, we post on YouTube and Instagram, and that's it. Maybe you have an email list and you send to those people. But if your email list is just people who found you via your Instagram and YouTube, which is pretty much solely targeted at existing parkour people, your email list is probably just going to be that as well. So your total addressable market is pretty small if that's the case. Whereas if you look at, Vans, I'm gonna bring up Vans a few times on this podcast. Vans' total addressable market is huge. They started in the 60s, expanded internationally around the 80s, started with just surfing, then pretty shortly after skateboarding. I was surprised to learn that they didn't make their dedicated skateboard shoe until like 20 years later. But what happened to them was skateboarding and surfing were already growing. It was like the cultural phenomena of that time. So they already had a lot to work with. But then they started expanding into this ethos of, hey, we're for the punk rocker. Hey, we're for the person who likes to go out to live shows and see metal, see rock, see punk rock. Like, we are the shoe for that crowd. We are the shoe for the surfing crowd. We are the shoe for the skateboarding crowd. And because so many people identified in that category, it then became the casual shoe of choice for those people and then all their friends and then people who wanted to be as cool as those people, and that's how it continued to expand and eventually became the number one shoe company in America, for its time. So their total addressable market was pretty big, and it had room to expand. But the problem with parkour is our industry, our sport, although it's, 20 years old ish, that's still absolutely infantile. we are little babies. And that's okay. We just have to recognize that. And we have to think in decades. Like Vans, it took them, they actually went bankrupt at a few points, but they didn't see a profit until 10 years in. Nike, Nike, Phil Knight struggled for a ton of time selling Onitsuka Tigers. He actually he had licensed tigers from Japan, and he sold them here in America. And he just got kicked in the teeth for like a decade until it got traction, until he pivoted from selling Onitsukas to founding Nike. And he still got kicked in the teeth for a little while. By that, I mean, business is hard. And then eventually he succeeded. So, these big brands, it takes decades. So if our industry is only like 2 decades old, and Farang's only been around for one of those, or Etra Fort was only around for less than that, there's not even enough time to really get that traction going yet. So just want to throw that out there. So when we look back at our industry, our total addressable market is small. And then if you really consider who's actually buying your stuff, it goes from your TAM, your total addressable market, down to your serviceable market, your SAM, total serviceable market. That is like if you're selling t-shirts and you're in California, and most of the people who know you are in California, your only real exposure is in California. Could be wherever you are, maybe it's Dubai, maybe it's, New York, whatever. It's just the people around who know you. Your serviceable market are those people who are actually interacting with you, who you can actually service, who you can serve. That's even a smaller subset. So big giant hurdle 1 is if you're selling into the parkour community, first you have to be able to expand to the whole parkour community, not just your region. How can you, partner with athletes? How can you partner with gyms? I'll expand on that in a second. How can you create content that is not just for like either your region, or is not just for like, hey, here are the top athletes that only a small subsect of the parkour community even identify with. This clothing is for them. How can you make your clothing for everyone in the parkour community, or at least like a wider niche in the parkour community? And parkour is already a small, tight niche already. So you don't need to niche down much more than that. Okay. So I just mentioned, how can you partner with parkour gyms to expand your serviceable market? After this, I'm going to talk about how can you expand out of the parkour industry and start bringing people in. That's really where the big opportunity is. But if you are a clothing business, I think from my perspective, one of the best ways to start selling your clothing is to start partnering with parkour gyms. And we've seen a couple shoe companies like, Olo or Feyway. Feyway has tried to sell through a couple of gyms, Freedom in Motion, my gym being one of them. And there's ways that it works and there's ways that it doesn't work. And as a clothing company, you have to recognize that parkour gyms, on average, don't take offense, anybody, I didn't for a long time, don't know what we're doing. We are still nailing the operations. We're still nailing, the team building. We're still nailing the profitability. In my opinion, those things have been solved. And if you are interested in that, please go to motionmentors.org and read the huge amount of content we have for parkour gyms. But in general, the average parkour gym owner and the parkour gym business is still figuring their stuff out. And I say that to you, parkour clothing owner, business owner, because when you approach these gyms, it's not just like, hey, let me sell my stuff at your gym and I'll make a profit and maybe you'll make some profit too. It's, here's why my clothing brand makes your parkour brand and the experience of learning parkour in your gym even better. And this is now a partnership that, if we don't fulfill our end of the bargain on, if we don't make your parkour gym even better, you can kick us out. Here's how each time you sell a shirt, it makes you money. Here's how we are going to make inventory and tracking and restocking as easy as possible on you, the gym owner. So you want to be an epically good partner for the parkour gym owner, and you need to be a no-brainer. The way that you're contributing to their business needs to be so good that they would feel stupid saying no to you, the parkour clothing business. So yeah, I say that just say that you need to really make it friction-free and highly valuable. But then what's on the other side of that, if you can get 1, 2, 3, several, a whole region of parkour gyms stocking your clothing, or maybe you're the one producing their branded clothing, so at least you have some volume going through so that you can leverage that volume to bring your own production costs down, either or both. Now you have some built-in distribution, you have some built-in cash flow, some built-in brand awareness, and that's just step one. You could go above and beyond and continue to support their athletes, support their coaches, support their community around them, and really have each gym be like a stake in the ground node to expand your brand awareness. And if you start doing that at multiple gyms, and then each of those parkour gym owners start saying, wow, introducing this clothing brand into my business, we started selling twice as many t-shirts as before, which brings us 1,000 extra bucks a month. Cool. And then for the students going there, they have a cool design that they can rep parkour through. And it's not just the same branded gym t-shirt that they wear to school or wear to college every day. They have some variety. So there's some serious synergy on that. And then you can start to grow your platform that way. And the reason why, I'll say this too, in addition to the reason why parkour gyms are sort of the only parkour business vertical that is really doing any amount of well, and we have any traction at all, is because parkour gyms don't just teach parkour to the existing parkour community. We don't have open gym just for the existing parkour community. If we did, we would have gone out of business a long time ago. What parkour gyms are doing is connecting with the local community, people who don't yet do parkour. That's important. People who don't yet do parkour. And we're bringing them into the industry, we're bringing them into the sport, and we're introducing them to their new favorite sport. So we're growing, a parkour gym is growing its serviceable market. It's growing its total ability to teach parkour, to earn revenue, and it's not reliant on an existing capped number of people. It has its hands on the controls, its hands on the levers of how many people are going to be learning parkour in this city. Increase marketing spend. Great, now it's more. So that ability to grow your own audience that a parkour gym has is huge. And it's absolutely essential if you want a business that grows big enough to the point to where you can sustain any amount of employees or owners. So that's one thing that parkour gyms have on the rest of the industry so far. Now, a t-shirt company or a shoe company, I'm kind of wrapping that all up into apparel. Totally still sell to the parkour community. In fact, let the parkour community continually validate that your design, your brand, your everything that you're about is in line and does contribute to parkour and does contribute to the community. Obviously our sport is all about movement freedom. It's all about reclaiming the built environment, reclaiming your own body, and that synergistic creative expression that you can just go out and generate out in the environment. We don't need any uniforms. We don't have any built-in rules like gymnastics. We don't have to be on the balance beam. You don't have to do it the same way like gymnastics every time. We have that appeal that skateboarding has, in that we can do the self-expression anywhere, and I think it's even more free than skateboarding because we don't have that tool, the skateboard. We're not bound to that. We can do literally anything we want. So that ethos is really cool. There's a lot there that we can leverage, and I'm speaking to the choir, I'm sure. And so if we can take that and market that and advertise that ethos, that movement freedom, that radical free creativity, that reclamation of the built environment and the natural environment, if we can give that to someone who's next to parkour, someone who thinks it's cool but hasn't quite jumped in yet, someone who is open to the idea of trying parkour, someone who's creative like that, outdoorsy like that. We can start to expand our reach from just people who already do parkour to that ring around it, people who probably watch videos on YouTube, like Store. Store does an excellent job of reaching those people who don't do parkour, but they like it. They don't identify as a parkour athlete or even in the parkour community, but they think it's pretty sick. So Store's videos have a ton of views, a ton of reach, and they likely see a complimentary spike in their clothing and apparel sales because those people just want to associate with that. So as a parkour shoe or clothing business, you need to wrap that into your marketing, and then you need to distribute your marketing to those people, which means you have to get out of just the parkour community. So you can't just make your reel and share it to just your parkour friends. You have to mix your video, mix your reel, mix your YouTube video in a way that's accessible, understandable, and inviting to that new audience. This is why Store does so much storytelling in their videos. That's why they all go and get stuck in a hole. Because personally, to me as a parkour athlete, I've been training for almost 20 years. I know they can get out of the hole. I can get out of the hole too. But to some new person who doesn't do parkour, being in a hole that looks that deep is fucking crazy. How are they going to get out of this hole? And they're drawn in, right? So how can you do that, clothing or shoe company, in what you produce, in the stories you tell, which don't have to be video? They can be written content. They can be sharing the stories of your athletes. How did they get started? What was their journey like? How can you be as relatable as you can to those people who are just outside of the sphere of parkour? Okay, you got it. So when you can do that, you can expand the people you can sell to, expand the people who even care or even have access to knowing what your brand is all about. It might take some time. Vans and them have taken 10 years. We got to grow the lifestyle and grow what does parkour mean for the human spirit side of the whole entire marketing of parkour, so that we get more and more people into this. Leverage parkour gyms, because parkour gyms are already doing this. They have to do it or they go out of business. So get right there with them, support them in their mission. They'll for sure support you in your mission. Another thing, so I'm doing a slight pivot. If we talk a little bit more about metrics, a little bit more tactical, a new concept to many clothing or shoe businesses might be the cost to acquire a client. So if you do some level of marketing, you have a paid Facebook ad, you do Google pay-per-click, whatever it is, you should be able to track how much money you're spending and how many people come to your website as a result, and how many people from that traffic make a purchase. So it's cost to acquire a new purchase, essentially. And you should be able to see how much money means how many more purchases. What's the average order size of those purchases? So what's the total value of a new client acquired, and how much did I have to spend in my marketing to get those people? Your cost to acquire a client. If once you know how much you're spending, and then on the other side of that, how much their average order size is. So maybe they're ordering 1 shirt or 5 shirts, a pair of shoes, pair of shirt also. They're spending like $100, $200 per order on average. Once you have that, you ought to be able, with your software, maybe if you're Shopify or use a Wix or your own thing, you should be able to track how often those people come back, either by making an account, by using the same credit card information, by using the same shipping address. There's multiple ways to calculate if that person comes back and makes another repeat purchase. You should be able to gauge their lifetime total revenue and thus their lifetime total profit. And if you know how much you spend to acquire a client, and then you know how much their lifetime total profit is, you can tweak that equation. And as long as you are gaining back more than you're spending into your marketing, you have fire. You have something that you can scale, right? So for parkour gyms, we like to see at least like a 1 to 3 ratio. For every dollar you put out, you're seeing $1 back, or $3 back. parkour clothing should be actually even easier because you have less fixed costs. It's an inventory business really. So as long as you're, $1 out to acquire a client, the money you get in pays for the inventory and pays for the marketing spend, and then you have profit. If that's the case, now just rev up your marketing, spend incrementally more and watch it grow until you reach the next constraint. Maybe it'll grow until you're like, oh shoot, I don't know how to have enough inventory for this. Oh no, I don't have enough time to personally produce all these articles of clothing. Or if you're a shoe company, I can't get my inventory back in from China, or made in America, wherever you're doing it, can't get it in time. What I'm saying is you expand until your next constraint. And if you find that ratio, every dollar you spend, you get profit back, you have released the most fundamental constraint that really any business has. It's, can I spend money to make money? If yes, how much money can I spend to make as much money as possible until I hit the next thing to solve? Sometimes the next thing to solve is, people. Like in a parkour gym, it's oftentimes leadership and people. In a clothing business, it's inventory management. How can I produce this for more cheaply? Me as the owner, I was producing all of this clothing myself. How can I get some more team members in here? Maybe you're a warehouse. You just can't do it in your mom's room anymore, your mom's basement. You got to move out and get a space. And all of a sudden your fixed costs have increased, and therefore your prices might need to also, or your volume. So there's things that happen after. But if you solve this cost to acquire a client versus lifetime gross profit equation, you're good. That's a good problem to have. So just wanted to put that in your bucket of, once you have figured out who you can sell to and you have a game plan of here is how I can expand my total addressable market, then there's actual metrics that you can track. How much profit am I making per sale? What's my average order size? What's my cost to acquire a client? What's my lifetime gross revenue, gross profit? And there's a few others. If you thought that was interesting so far, and you have a clothing business, you have a parkour gym, you have a coaching business, whatever it is, Motion Mentors is here to help us all together grow the parkour industry. So please feel free to reach out to us. Please feel free to, let us know what you're currently struggling with, what you want to do, what you're trying to do. We would love to just give you our free advice. And frankly, there's a lot already on our website, motionmentors.org. And if it works out, we'd love to partner with you, be a mentor with you and alongside you, and help you get to your next step. Great. So, okay, said a lot there. If you guys are interested in learning more, book, go read Shoe Dog by Phil Knight. It's Phil Knight, the founder of Nike. It's his story going from leasing, the rights to sell Onitsuka Tigers in America all the way to Nike, what he has today. On the podcast, How I Built This, they recently republished a interview with, what's his name? Bayard Winthorpe. He's the owner of American Giant. American Giant's a clothing company that exclusively produces and manufactures in America. And they were able to make just an absolutely huge business. And their whole thing was everything's made in America and top quality. And they told that story really, really well. And that worked. And that went against the common wisdom of you can't fully manufacture clothing in America anymore. The industry doesn't exist. And that was true, but Bayard figured it out and he put it together. So it's a great story there that you can wrap your head around. And there's plenty of others. In sharing those things with you, that book by Phil Knight and the story of American Giant, I'm pointing at that a lot of these problems have already been solved. How to start and grow and expand a clothing business, a shoe business, apparel at large has already been solved. You just need to figure out how to make that happen in the parkour industry. So go and find mentors, whether it's us or it's just listening to stories like Phil Knight's or, watching tons of YouTube content on this, but get outside of the industry, find the mentors for you and figure out how this problem has already been solved in the past. And let's claw that back and drag its dead body into parkour and breathe some more life into it for us. Okay. So we can grow this. I personally radically believe in parkour. I think it has more legs than skateboarding. I think it has a deeper connection to the human spirit, that like primate instinct that humans have. I think parkour is like the best situated sport to do that. We just need to, as a community, get better at storytelling, get better at marketing and advertising, get better at sales, and then just learn from the giants who've come before us in the other industries. If we don't do that, the decade of time that it's already naturally going to take someone to grow a thriving business is going to take 2 decades or 3 decades, or you're just going to burn out and not make it by then. So get outside of yourself, get outside of parkour, find a mentor. That's what I do every day. I have plenty of mentors outside of the parkour space that help me grow my currently 3 parkour gyms and this business, Motion Mentors. And I want that for you too. Okay, let's keep the conversation going. If that was helpful to you, reach out, shoot us a DM. We would love to help you grow your parkour business. Again, my name is Jimmy Davidson, and good luck out there, guys. Thanks a lot. See ya.